morning and welcome to GrainTV.
Good afternoon and welcome to GrainTV.
Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV today.
Cody, what's your favorite number out of this morning's garage of data?
Yeah, I'd say that. Good morning and welcome to GrainTV. Today is October 4th. My name is Cody Bills. This is Brock Shimano. Today we had FC Stone raise their yield estimates, and that should put some pressure on the markets this morning. We also have favorable market conditions going out over a week, and favorable harvest conditions. That should put pressure on the
outside markets are decidedly bearish this morning with the Dow down 237. That should be a head body shot for the grain complex this morning. Brock, what happened in the overnight?
Cody, basically saw a massive sell-off again in the overnight. Corn was down 11 3/4, soybeans was down 13 3/4, and wheat was down 9 to 11. So we're continuing to see that bearish market, bears being in the driver's seat, driving the market lower pretty much for the last few weeks. But the biggest news coming out yesterday for the crop side of things is the crop progress. Corn is a little bit behind pace on their harvest, a couple percentages behind their 5-year average. Two states to note is Indiana is 10% versus their 25% 5-year average. Ohio is 0% harvested versus their 22% average. Soybeans, on the other hand, is also pretty far behind by about 6%, which is to be expected with the late planting that we had over there. Indiana, again, is behind their 5-year average by 22%. Ohio is behind their 5-year average by 11%. But on the winter wheat side of things, we do see planting progressing pretty nicely right now. We're still behind our usual pace. A lot of the people down in Oklahoma and Texas are looking for some beneficial rains before they actually put their crop in the ground. And it looks like they might receive it here in the next week or so. Looking at the weather outlook, as far as harvest is concerned in the Midwest, we look pretty good. Clear, warm weather should see harvest advance very quickly out in most of the upper Midwest. But for that southern area, we do see that we're going to be getting some rains that are supposed to be widespread across those southern plains. So hopefully they'll be able to get a good crop, get a good start to that winter wheat crop, in the outlook for the next couple weeks or so.
One thing I did notice is that some key meteorologists did come out, and they said that the La Nina pattern should actually persist and even get stronger going into next spring, and of course that'll continue to see that sort of drought, that the dry weather in the south. Do you see that as a threat right now?
Yeah, basically that's what started off this drought last year. Was we had an extended La Nina pattern all winter long that contributed to the drought pattern, and if it reemerges again like it looks like it's going to, we could see it still be dry down south. Yeah. These factors, with crop progress moving along pretty quickly, the weather looks good, adding pressure to the grain complex right now. Also adding pressure is some macroeconomic issues. Cody, what is going on over there?
Yeah, why don't I swing over here? This is the SPY. It's the S&P 500 Spider Index. What you're seeing here is a pretty solid head and shoulders pattern that we put in a long while ago, and then we started consolidating and trading in a range down here. What we saw yesterday was a close below that range, and today we're seeing trading well below that as well. It's a continuation of that break. So I'm seeing that as putting a lot of pressure on markets as a whole. One of the major reasons that this is happening is the European debt crisis. The IMF inspectors for Greek debt delayed loan disbursement, citing delayed implementation and missed targets. So that's a problem. They're going to revisit it by the end of the month, but it puts a little concern in the market's mind whether or not this could mean that there's some sort of disorderly default. I think the probability of that is pretty low, but that uncertainty is what plagues the markets. As far as the second round of bailout, there's more pressure being put on banks to take a larger loss. And that, of course, is going to affect intrabank lending. And the real concern is, will banks have enough capital to be able to withstand these defaults? The bottom line here is the IMF is going to try and do something about that. The Royal Bank of Scotland said that they may lower rates by 1/4 of a point. Of course, remember earlier on in this year, a long while ago, they were raising rates, worrying about inflation. And now they're at a point where they may end up dropped by 1/4 by Thursday, as Royal Bank of Scotland is suggesting. So what's that going to mean for grains and commodities in the U.S.? Well, that's gonna weaken the euro. That's going to strengthen the dollar. So there's a good chance we could see continued strength in the dollar, and that's going to make our grains less competitive on the global market.
All right, let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll come back with the open market.
Welcome back to Grain TV. Brock, the markets are opening here. Corn, beans, wheat, all down. Can you tell us what's going on?
Yeah, we're continuing that sell-off. We're down even further than we were in the overnight. Corn is now down 15 for the December contract. Soybeans are down 22 1/4, and wheat is down about 18.5 to 20. But Cody, I guess you have some more information coming out of Europe right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing I know that Credit Suisse came out. Their outlook is really for corn to be up at $7, beans to go back up to 14, and wheat to kind of trail right along with it. I mean, what do you make of that forecast? That is like sharply against what we've seen from other analysts, it seems, and sharply against this market trend. Do you see this as something that could happen?
I don't really know what the time frame is on that. Maybe in the next year we'll get back to those prices. But for right now, I'm looking at us being closer to 5 and 11 than we are to 7 and 14. We have a lot of bearish news in the market. We have pretty good yield results coming out right now from early harvest. And we have the dollar strengthening and weak exports. So I'm looking at these factors as contributing to the downside of these commodity markets right now. Also adding to that is Egypt is now requiring higher protein wheat to be imported. So that's going to make it tougher for us to export. And Russia actually going to be tougher to export. It looks like they're going to continue to give their tenders to the Black Sea area as well as some other places.
Well, if they're looking for more quality wheat, it almost sounds like Russia is going to be at a disadvantage, as most of their wheat is not quite the quality that we produce in the U.S. Not saying that their wheat's inferior, but just that you'd think that our wheat would actually qualify more in terms of.
It might help us a little bit, but we're going to have to meet those new standards as well. We got bumped from required of 11% up to 11.5%, whereas Russia got bumped up to 12%. So they got bumped even a little bit more, citing that they do have maybe a little bit poorer quality wheat right now.
Yeah, of course, though, in that Kansas City region, we had heat, a lot of heat, a lot of stress. So a lot of that Kansas City crop came off with pretty good protein premium. So maybe it'll open up the gate for some of that to be sold in the exports, but who knows? One of the main things that Credit Suisse cited was demand. They were saying that they expect ethanol demand to continue to be strong, despite the fact that the blender credit may be removed. That is going to continue to drive demand. And that really, the blender, it's looking pretty favorable for them. The outlook for blender is looking pretty favorable. They also mentioned that China's stocks aren't necessarily what the USDA is pinning them at. They suspect that it's much lower than that, and they're saying that the corn-based sweetener demand in China is going to really outstrip their production, causing China to actually come into the international market. To try and source some of that corn. So, I mean, it's interesting to see their perspective, especially when we've had such a sharp decline here. They're kind of contrasting the market sharply.
Yeah, we really haven't seen the exports pick up a whole lot, even though we've been selling off in the last couple of weeks. Export inspections actually came well below average for corn, soybeans. Wheat was about on par, but we're still well behind what the USDA is projecting us to do. And Brazil actually came out and said they exported about 50% more than what they did last September. So, I'm looking at that as we're still not very competitive on the export market.
Well, we'll be taking a closer look on export sales this Thursday. One other thing to keep in mind before we sign off here, Ben Bernanke should be speaking in front of Congress at the end of today. That always can put a twist on the market. He always seems to affect the market very sharply whenever he speaks. Remember, give us a call at 877-472-4607. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, or give us an email at graintv@gmail.com.